Well, hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the columnist for the Belfast Telegraph, Allison Morris, and the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, Wallis Simons. Welcome to both of you, with us from now until just before midnight, I know. So to the front pages then, kicking off with The Guardian. It covers questions over the future of the SNP leader Humza Yousaf after the Scottish Greens said it will join with rival MSPs to back a no-confidence motion in the First Minister. Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister has complained that migrants are heading to his country instead of the UK as a result of the Rwanda bill. That's the Telegraph's top story. The Metro reporting on a New York appeal court's decision to overturn one of Harvey Weinstein's rape convictions. University academics will be vetted by security services as part of government plans to tackle Chinese spying, reports The Times. World's first jab to stop skin cancer brings hope for patients. That is the Eye's headline on what could be a game-changing melanoma treatment. Attacks on staff at shops have doubled, with offences soaring by a third, according to figures in the Daily Mail. Mining giant BHP's £31 billion bid for Anglo-American stirs disputes among investors, reports the Financial Times. The Mirror has launched a campaign to save FA Cup replays. The Sun reports Manchester United football legend Ryan Giggs is set to become a father again at the age of 50. Well, don't forget, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out those front pages while you listen to our guests. So let's head straight to Alison and to Jake. Welcome to both of you. Kicking off with The Guardian, it's on the front of the Telegraph as well. Scottish politics, Jake, in disarray.
That's right. I mean, this is like seeing the slow-motion collapse, certainly of Humza Yousaf's career, I think, and possibly of the SNP as well. So it started yesterday when he collapsed the Green power-sharing deal, which backfired when the Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross tabled a no-confidence motion in him, which then meant that the balance of power lay with the Alba Party. They have only one MSP, Ash Regan, who holds the deciding vote over the fate of Humza Yousaf. And that, her decision is going to really hinge on how he is able to roll back from his pro-trans stance. She's quite feminist and implementing the Caste report in Scotland. And also his commitment, or otherwise, to Scottish independence, which has sort of hit the rocks recently. So really dangerous times for Humza Yousaf. And to me, it just seems like the Labour Party in Scotland, and indeed in Westminster, is going to be rubbing their hands together with glee, because the collapse of the SNP means big gains for Labour with a general election coming up.
I mean, this is fascinating because it rolls in all the issues we've been talking about recently, whether it's net zero, pulling back from some of their commitments, whether it's the trans rights and self-identity issues, which we've heard so much about, all comes into focus. Just reading, actually, sources close to the First Minister have told Sky News he is not resigning and is coming out fighting. So it could be that this no-confidence action is as early as, Tuesday was the suggestion. Yeah. It could be really interesting to see how close this will be, Alison.
He may have no choice, and he is less than a year in the job. He only replaced Nicola Sturgeon less than a year ago, so he would be the shortest ever reigning Scottish First Minister. And then they have 28 days to replace him. If he does decide to go, he can hold on, but he's fatally damaged. Once there's a motion of no confidence, no leader in history has managed to hold on for any significant period of time after such a motion of no confidence. They all end up going very shortly after this. So you can see that he is under serious trouble. Obviously doing away with that deal that Nicola Sturgeon had made with the Greens in 2021, he might have thought was a good move in the circumstances, but as Jake said, it's spectacularly backfired on him. And the next few days, I think, especially going into the start of next week, we will see whether he manages to hold on. But right now, it's looking like he's going to have to be replaced. And that could even spark another election. And with the SNP obviously doing quite poorly in the polls, that's something that clearly isn't ideal for the party at this particular time.
Yes, but they get 28 days, don't they, to find another leader should he find that the vote does not go with him next week. So this weird situation where the two women who stood against him for this position, Ash Regan that you mentioned, and now with the Alex Salmond Party, and Kate Forbes as well, who's a possible successor, holding quite an interesting position, aren't they, even though she's more socially conservative than the body of the SNP.
That's right. And of course, let's not forget Nicola Sturgeon, who isn't doing anybody any favours for being in the news with the scandal of her own and of her husband. And so I think overall, the perception to the public is this great sort of instability in the SNP, and combined with their failures to perform in terms of schools and public services in Scotland, all of which are doing very poorly indeed by comparison to those in England, I think generally speaking, they're not going to be performing very well at the next election.
It's been quite a sort of cautionary tale, you know, not to base your whole party around this sort of presidential type leader, because once one person goes, then everything else below it starts to trickle away.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating because you might argue that Labour relied on Humza Yousaf not possibly performing as well as some might have expected for their own general election results. And if it comes back with a stronger SNP, for example, you know, it could have an impact on the UK-wide general election. Let's move on, shall we, to the Daily Telegraph. Right up your street, this, Alison. Rwanda threat is pouring migrants into Ireland. The Deputy Prime Minister of Ireland critical after 80% of asylum seekers arrive across the border from the UK.
Yeah, Micheál Martin has said that the Rwanda bill has sent migrants, a lot of them are mainly Nigerian, who are arriving in huge numbers into the south of Ireland. And a lot of them are coming across that open border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, believing that they have to move, obviously, to escape any chance of being deported to Rwanda. In effect, because of the Northern Ireland Protocol, that Brexit arrangement, the Rwanda bill doesn't apply to Northern Ireland, so nobody can be deported from Northern Ireland anyway, because the protocol takes primacy over all other domestic law, and it means that Northern Ireland remains within the European Charter of Fundamental Rights, and therefore asylum seekers are entitled to stay there and can't be deported to Rwanda. So you can see how Ireland, that island in itself, north and south, could become very attractive. And the knock-on effect of that is we're seeing a real rise in the mobilisation of the far right in Ireland. We've had direct provision centres set on fire. We've seen protests outside politicians' houses. You know, the kind of scenes that you would never have imagined in Ireland, which was always a very welcoming place. You know, Ireland, the Irish, we are ourselves a nation of immigrants. You know, we have immigrated and migrated all over the world, and it was always a very welcoming place. But the huge numbers are putting real strains on the infrastructure, and you can see then how those, you know, within those sort of far right agitators are pushing and using this influx of migrants to their own benefit, and it is causing real strains, especially in some very urban areas where resources, housing was already at a premium. Nobody, you know, young people can't afford to go on the property ladder in Ireland because of the price of houses. School places are at a premium, doctor's appointments are at a premium, and all of this then is being fed in with this massive influx. Ireland is a small place. It's not that Ireland is full, as some of these people keep saying. It's just that they haven't got the infrastructure, hasn't been able to keep up with the growth in the population.
Yes, and the Daily Telegraph saying Dublin believes migrants and refugees, mainly from Nigeria, are travelling from Britain to Northern Ireland before crossing the land border with the Republic, which is open as guaranteed by a UK-EU Brexit treaty. A little bit like Africans can land in one Central American country, which does not require Africans to have a visa, and that becomes another route into America. I'm going to move on if you don't mind. Yeah, you're right. Into the Weinstein sensation. Front page of the Metro. Now accusers face a retrial ordeal because it was found that this rape case he was unfairly treated in this rape case.
That's right. I mean, I suppose that it's right if the appeal did find, as it has done, that he didn't get a fair trial for various reasons, including prosecutors were wrongly allowed to call witnesses whose claims were not included in the charges, and he was questioned in a prejudicial way. So it's right that it would come to retrial. But it does seem a little bit unfair on the women who were involved in the first trial, having to come back and testify and go through all this a second time, when it's unlikely to make any difference because he's going to remain in prison anyway for different charges of which he was convicted in 2022. He got 16 years in a separate case of rape in LA. So he's 72 years old now. This will take up until his mid-80s. He's unlikely to see daylight again as a free man. So it does seem like, although justice needs to be done in this way, it seems like unnecessary ordeal for the women involved in this case.
You know, you would think if you were one of those women, you'd already give your evidence, you have proven your point. You know, I think that, you know, people believe them. The Me Too movement came from that. for this to have a retrial. He isn't going to be serving any more time in prison anyway. He's probably going to die in prison. And, you know, if I was one of these women, would I want to put myself through that ordeal of a trial again, knowing at the end it's an academic exercise, because they have already, if you like, they have proved, they have been believed, and he is going to stay in jail because he's serving a sentence for another crime that he committed. He's doing, has a 16-year jail term still to serve. It'll be interesting to see if those women, if all of them come forward and say, OK, let's go through another trial again. Because in the past, and I've covered numerous rape trials, I find that when they go to retrial, in a lot of cases, the complainants and the victims in the case just say, look, I can't do this again. I've done it once and I just can't put myself through it again.
There's not much incentive, is there, knowing that he's in prison anyway?
Exactly, yeah.
You know, why put myself through it?
Let's take a look at the Daily Mail. Thieves hit shops 1,000 times a day, and attacks on staff double as well. So when will police start doing their job and protect long-suffering retailers? Suggestion from government is that everyone needs to be investigated now.
That's right. I mean, the problem with this is that low-level crime leads to greater criminality. It's been proven in a number of different instances.
In what sense?
Well, I'm thinking of Rudy Giuliani in the 90s, and where he cleaned up New York City by a broken window strategy, by which you clamp down on the small things, and then the big things become easier to police because of the sense of deterrent and the climate of enforcement. And if you're not doing that, then you begin to lose your grip on law enforcement. And we're seeing that with shoplifting, we're seeing that with the protests, the police failing to get a grip on the protests every weekend in London and elsewhere, and in other ways as well. I mean, burglaries aren't getting solved, crimes are going uninvestigated, let alone unsolved. And there's a general sense of lack of confidence in the police, I think, throughout the country. And headlines like this just emphasise that point. You know, 1,000 times a day is a lot of times to hit a shop.
Many, many moons ago, I worked in retail as a very young woman, and I have seen people shoplifting and have decided, given the fact that I was being paid minimum wage, that I was certainly not going to put my life at risk to try and stop them. And you can see why people who work, especially for those large retailers, not small independent retailers, are saying, you know, I'm going to turn a blind eye to this.
Did you call the cops? Did you call the cops back then?
No, I told the manager it's up to them to call the cops. I wasn't getting paid enough. It was outside my pay grade.
But more widely as well, these new crime statistics showed that 90% of all crimes go unsolved.
Yeah.
And I know cost of living, pressure on people's finances does lead to more crime. But we've seen with the shoplifting, it is criminal gangs paying people to go in and wipe clean shelves, haven't we? You know, taking large bags of it.
That kind of shoplifting is different from people. I mean, it saddens me when I go into, you know, a supermarket and see baby food with tags on it, because that is people stealing to try and feed their children, and that's a completely different thing from mass organised crime gangs shoplifting and making huge amounts of profits from it while damaging, you know, the businesses in the meantime. If you address the cause of poverty, you know, you would get rid of a lot of that sort of petty theft.
But I think it's also, there's a perception, I think, that it's a victimless crime, particularly when it's a big superstore like Tesco's or something. But actually, it's not. I mean, according to the Daily Mail, the crime surge is costing retailers $2 billion a year, adding £59 a year to household grocery bills. So we're picking up the tab for this shoplifting. So it does harm society.
OK, lots more still to come in the next part of our programme, including the story on the front of the eye, featuring a unique personalised vaccine using genetics to fight skin cancer. Talk about that breakthrough afterwards. Well, welcome back. You are watching the Press Preview. With me once again, the columnist for the Belfast Telegraph, Allison Morris, and the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, Wallis Simons. Welcome back to both of you. Fascinating story, front page of the Eye and front of the Times as well. World's first jab to stop skin cancer. The Times puts it that patients with skin cancer can get customised jabs to target tumours up the top there. This is really interesting, isn't it?
It's really fascinating. It's the world's first personalised vaccine. So what happens is you have your surgery for a melanoma, which is often the main symptom is a mole that goes deformed. So you have your surgery, and after that, they would give you a vaccine that's custom-made for each patient, and it trains your immune system to recognise the unique mutations on the surface of your tumours, then hunts down those rogue cells that are left. So it's really a massive development. One wonders whether a similar kind of personalised approach could be taken with other cancers as well.
Well, the suggestion is the other cancers would be lung cancer, bladder cancer and kidney cancer, which is a game changer for many of those with it. They say that a final phase 3 trial has been launched and led by University College London Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. You know, the point, as you say, that the immune system will then tell the body to hunt down cancer cells and prevent these deadly diseases coming back, first of all with melanoma, would be truly heartwarming to people, wouldn't it?
And the treatment for these type of cancers is so harsh, and you know it takes such a lot out of people who are going. And I know people who have been through those sort of cancer treatments. It's very debilitating, and to think that if something like this could come along that could remove the need for that very invasive treatment to try and save lives, it really would be a game changer. And as someone who abused my very Irish skin in my teenage years, it is something that I'm really cautious of now. You know, I go out practically in a wetsuit and factor 50 from head to toe, but I didn't always, and it's something I'm so concerned about, given the fact that I know so many people who are now in later life suffering from those kind of skin cancers.
Absolutely. It is an mRNA cancer jab for melanoma. Personalised cancer vaccines are a new field of medicine, and the mRNA technology is the same as in the COVID jabs. So, interesting development, certainly. Moving on to, I've completely forgotten where we're going. Front page of the Times, same with the Times, actually. There we go, that's probably why. This story down the bottom, MI5 checks for academics to curb the threat from China, plan to protect cutting-edge research and foil foreign spies after talks with vice-chancellors. Because R&D is a really big part of this, isn't it, obviously, as well?
That's right. I mean, it reminds me, the Jewish Chronicle last year did a story where we exposed collaborations between academics in Britain and Iranians on cutting-edge drone research, and the Prime Minister launched an investigation into that, which had yet to report, but we're looking forward to the results of that. This is very, very similar, but it's Chinese. And an MI5 have requested for tighter vetting procedures for academics and also the ability to vet collaborations with other states, particularly China, but Iran, I think, would be in the picture as well, to prevent our secrets and our cutting-edge technology from being shared with authoritarian and hostile regimes. So it just goes to show that the threat is pretty great, and universities have traditionally been a soft target for hostile regimes for a long time, and it feels to me like a case of better late than never.
Yes, and I suppose with all the defence focus this week, that actually espionage, classic espionage and cyber attacks are a really central part of the defence of the nation, isn't it? Should we go to the inside pages of the Metro now, Alison? Will's talking jokes on the sort of around the subject of mental health to children.
Yeah, and it is quite a light-hearted story, and it's, you know, he went to visit this school. This young guy had sent
Prince
him
William, I should
Prince
say,
William
not
had, yeah,
Wales.
Prince William had this young student had sent Prince William a letter, and he has responded by attending his school. But the message behind it is actually, it's quite a serious message, and the fact that, you know, the school is doing training with young men, you know, this am I manly enough? And the idea that, you know, that women cry and that men sort of toughen up. And the school is doing this lovely, I think, scheme with these young children, teaching them this and going through this mental health work. And it was not lovely for them then that Prince William, who I know has spoken quite a lot about his own mental health after his mother died. I couldn't tell that joke because I don't understand it.
Oh, really?
I did read it and I thought, is that meant to be?
Have you got it
maybe
there,
you had to be there.
Okay,
maybe you had to be there.
Knock, knock.
Yeah.
Who's there? Interrupting cow.
Then I go, interrupting cow.
Move.
Yeah,
Might interrupt you.
Yeah,
He has a cow.
interrupt you. Do you get it now?
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely a had to be there situation. Yeah,
I like
joke.
that one. Alison and Jake, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you for more, obviously, in the 11. Plenty more to talk about. Let's take a look at the weather now.